Oh, here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Swollen Busy Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Colvin, and today I have my friend, Jesse. So today he's going to be sharing with us a little bit about the whole mindfulness thing. But before we get into that, Jesse, could you just tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Aaron. I'm happy to be here. My name is Jesse Bell. I am the founder and owner of Sturdy Oak Wellness. I am a pranic healer and a health and wellness coach. A little bit about myself. Live in Colorado. Spent 20 years working in corporate America, kind of living a life where was not really living my healthiest version of myself, and have overcome a lot of things in my life. From I lost 110 pounds at one point, overcame some drug
Oh,
addiction
wow.
at one point, and really turned my life around and owe a lot of that to spirituality, to mindfulness, to meditation, and yeah, just here to try to help anybody that I can in any way that I can to, kind of have some similar success if that's what they want.
Oh, that's awesome, Jesse. It's actually funny that you said it because I actually mainly was wondering. So, I know myself, I'm kind of confused about it. Can you like explain what exactly spirituality is?
Spirituality. What is spirituality? Yeah. So the way that I think about spirituality is it's different than religion. It's not religion. My teacher actually says spirituality unites, religion divides. So I think of spirituality as that common thread that goes through all religions. So it's
Right.
definitely acknowledging that we are part of something bigger, that there's something bigger than us, God, Mother Nature, whatever you want to call it, but just that our existence is not accidental. And really, it's just about being a good person, right? And living up to some kind of standards or ideal that
Right.
make you want to do more in life. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, it makes perfect sense. So then, so just I actually I did I wasn't sure if I'm not sure if we talked about this last time,
Hmm.
but I actually wasn't sure that I didn't know you lost 110 pounds. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was 2012. I just I was not raised in a place where I was taught healthy eating or to go to a gym. So, it wasn't really anything fantastical to do. It was just, like stop eating, two Big Macs and a 20-piece McNugget and two giant Mr. Pibbs 3 times a week, and
Yeah.
you can lose some weight and then do some exercise. So, yeah, it's been 12 years now since I did that.
Wow. That's really amazing, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wait, so just to get this straight, so like where were you then? Because obviously today you're a completely different person.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, a pretty dark place, I would say. That was, like I say, 2012. My father left his body in 2007, and after that, I kind of just fell into a spiral of drug use. Quite frankly, I was using
Mm.
a lot of opiates every single day.
Wow.
At one point, up to 18 Percocets a day. Alcohol, and just overall depressed and down. I was functioning, so like I was employed the whole
Yeah.
time. But
Wow, you were working a job doing all that?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's how did you manage?
Luck, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
No,
mean,
that's fair.
I think honestly, I think there's a lot of people in this world that are functioning addicts, right? I mean, it's you've
Wow.
got enough willpower to kind of show up and get to work and take care of yourself so that you don't lose your house, but also you're sick and dying on the inside, essentially. So yeah, I mean, it was not. I mean, it was in hindsight, it was not fun, right? I mean, I was
Right.
feeling bad. Like I went to the dentist this morning, and for some reason I had a flashback kind of that time of being in the dentist, and just like I had like a rotten tooth, and I'd always had cavities, and now I go to the dentist, and it's like I have like raving reviews, and just it's so easy, and it just took me back there
Yeah.
for a minute of like, wow, like just my body was breaking down. My body was not healthy. So, I might have I may have thought I was having fun, with what I was doing. And, I was young and dumb
Yeah.
and reckless and careless. Right. But, in hindsight, I put my body through a lot of damage.
No, I mean, I completely understand. Wait, so then what was it that like why did you decide to wake up, I guess you could say? Like what caused the change?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean, feel free to think about it. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, it's, for me, I've always felt a little bit lucky and a little blessed that I had kind of this inner drive or this inner willpower to want more for myself, right? But
Mm, I
specifically,
see.
I do recall this period of time where my job was kind of starting to catch on. And I remember getting called into my boss's office at one point, and, she was wrong because she thought I had a problem with drinking, didn't realize it was the other stuff that I was doing.
Yeah.
And I managed to work, weasel my way out of that a little bit, and it was all fine and no problem. And they were just trying to help. But that kind of started off for me, like, I don't, like, what am I doing here? Right. Just kind of an eye opening of, if I don't get my shit together, then there's going to be bigger problems here down the line.
Right.
I do remember going to the doctor. I had a bleeding ulcer, and
Jeez,
I
man.
was throwing up blood and it was coming out of both ends, if you will. Sorry if that's too graphic.
Yikes. No, you're fine. Yeah.
But, I was 32 years old, and the doctor
Oh
wanted
wow. No, that's
to,
young for that.
yeah, yeah. And, I was 285 pounds. The doctor wanted to put me on cholesterol medicine. She wanted to get me tested for sleep apnea because I was not sleeping well. I had super high anxiety, so I was on antidepressants. I was smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. And I don't know, I think at that moment, kind of a few things, but, that's obviously eye opening to be like, wow, I'm 32. Like, probably, I'm too
Yeah.
young for this, right? But then
Yeah, definitely.
I had two uncles who died at 35 and 38 of, similar stuff, not taking care of themselves, and heart problems, family heart problems. So it was just kind of that moment where, I had to make a decision that I wanted to live. And, I can
Mm,
picture that moment pretty vividly. It was after a
yeah.
night of partying, and, just kind of had enough, and everyone was still going through it upstairs. I was in the basement, and just was like, this is like, I'm killing myself.
Right.
So I'd kind of done a little bit of exercise before that and whatnot, but that was really the pivotal moment of like, all right, like, if I'm going to do something, it's got to be now.
Wow, man. Holy moly. Just huge thank you, dude. Yeah, just said I'd say before I go any further, just like seriously, dude. I have so much respect for you.
Thank you.
So I really do appreciate you for sharing that.
Thank you.
So I was just wondering, so for the people out there that maybe going through something similar, they're I guess you could say in a dark place. If you had to take them from you know day zero to I don't know, we'll just say by the end of the year, what would you tell them to do to start to make actual life changes so they can get out of that cycle?
Mm.
Because that's your expertise, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's what I love. It's my passion. I
Right.
love change and personal development and growth. For me, I think first and foremost, it starts with not being afraid to dream. So
Hmm.
wherever you are, right, no matter how bad of a place you're in, and I know life can be tough, right, and it's like gets to this place where, it feels like there's nothing I can do. There's no hope. This is my fate, and, I'm screwed. But there's like some serious value in just like taking some time to yourself and saying, if that wasn't the case, what would I want life to look like? Right? What is, create a higher vision for yourself, right? What is,
Hmm.
and make it up, right? Make it doesn't have to
Yeah.
seem even attainable at that point. I mean, for me, it was like, you know, I want to be able to do pull-ups, and I want to have a nice body and have women like me, whatever it is at the time, that,
Yeah.
makes people do what they do, whatever it is.
Right.
just don't be afraid to dream. And, I would encourage then also writing that down, right? Like when you actually um, take a dream and create it physically by putting it on paper, you're starting a materialization process. So,
Hmm.
um, just
That's interesting.
just by instead of it just being a thought that comes and goes, right? Now you've written down a goal, and it's something that you can look at and reflect upon and actually work towards. um,
Wow.
so
I love that, man.
so yeah, dream, um and then like create a plan. Just try as far out as you can see. You kind of you've got to find a balance between not doing enough and overwhelming yourself, right? Like just kind of a lightweight plan to get you moving. But change is really all about small steps. um one of my favorite quotes from my coaching school that I went to was, well, it's a couple, but small hinges swing big doors, right? So this change might seem massive, but these you just have to build these little tiny steps on top of each other, and ultimately those small changes will open that door for you.
I'm gonna have to remind myself of that one.
Hmm. Yeah. 1% change every day, or 1% growth, right? I mean, it's like compounding interest. I mean, eventually all of that builds on top of each other, and before you know it, you're a billionaire, right?
Yeah, no, it's very true. Wow, man. This, this is crazy. Just, just, I'm just gotta take a moment to take it all in. It's like, so I was just wondering because I know you talked a lot about the whole dream. So when you were there, like, what was your dream?
um I think if I'm being honest, for me it was a lot about partnership and
Mm,
having a partner, having
yeah,
a wife, a
right.
family. um you know, Obviously wanting to live and wanting to experience that, are there at the forefront. But yeah, I mean, kind of on a materialistic level for me, it was like, hey, like I wanted to be wanted. I wanted to be cared for. I wanted
Yeah,
to have somebody to love and who loved me. Right. And yeah, at 32 years old, it was like, yeah, man, if I'm gonna have children someday, like, I'm gonna need to get this going. Um, and it's nice to date and
no,
be with
yeah,
a partner, right? So, and I was with somebody at the time, but it was not a healthy relationship, obviously. And um, so yeah, just my vision was just, I think, more of a family and just a happy
mm.
life. Yeah.
So then, would you say that like that the idea of having a family was that what gave you purpose?
Yeah, that's an interesting
What I mean is
question.
was that your why? You know what I mean? Because a lot of people say you got to start with why.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was definitely AY, but
Yeah.
when I hear you say it back, I think what maybe it was more just about living. My
Mm.
my dad died at a pretty young age. He was 63 when he passed. Um,
Oh, I'm sorry about that, man.
Thank you. And so I guess my purpose was to live and to experience life. So a kind of a combination of those, right? I mean, I can't, they're not separate from each other either, right? Living involves peace and joy and happiness, and having love in your life and having a family. For me, that's what it was for me.
Yeah.
So they were kind of coupled together, I would say. Yeah.
So I want to make sure I'm understanding you.
Hmm.
So what I'm hearing you say, right, is you know it seemed like as you start to age and get in the corporate world, it seems like life started to become more stressful, right?
Stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Because I was just wondering, like when was it that you started the drug use?
hmm hmm
Because
um,
what I mean was like I get the stuff you said about your dad, but was that what triggered it?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mm,
for sure. Yeah, I mean, it was, uh, I didn't, I'd always kind of messed around with alcohol and marijuana my whole life since I was 18 years old. Kind of went down that
I mean,
path.
that's pretty normal.
Yeah, you know, maybe. um,
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, the heavy drug use it was once he was gone. And I mean, he was my best friend. He was my, my more than just a dad, a friend. Like we would go to the bar
yeah,
together and I worked with him for a while. And so, yeah, when he was gone, I was very lonely. And quite frankly, just in a massive state of depression. So, um,
yeah,
yeah, it was, that felt a lot better at the time than what I was going through,
yeah.
which is actually really
Right.
interesting, right? I mean, that's something I believe is that, you know, all of the choices that we make as humans, they have good intentions, right? They're actually safe choices for us. Like even in hindsight, even though that looks like why the hell would drug use ever be a good
Right.
intention? At the time, the depression was bad enough that that may have saved my life to actually bring some joy into my life, right? But it's being
Wow.
able to identify those choices that we make and understand why we made them that enable us in the future to make matured decisions, if you will, right? So, hey, that was why I
No,
did
yeah.
that. Now here I am. This is not the best, healthiest, best choice for me anymore. So, what can I do different?
Wow, man. Wait, so I mean, I'm assuming. I mean, I completely understand where you're coming from because, like personally for me, like my mom's all I got. So I mean, she's how you felt about your dad is pretty much how I feel about her. So
Mm-hmm.
I try not to think about it, but you know, as you're talking, I'm sitting here thinking like, yeah, if she went, I mean, I would definitely try to keep going, but it would be hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so the reason why I bring that up is because I mean, it's obviously you love your dad very much. So like, how do you manage that like now? Because you're obviously older, more mature. I mean, you have a family now, but like, still, how do you stay centered?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that takes us back to the spirituality talk, honestly. I mean, kind of,
Really?
when I kind of picked my head up out of the mud a little bit from all that experience, and realized that I was literally just going to kill myself, following,
Yeah.
that same path. Um, I remember kind of having a little bit of a personal vow to myself to never feel that bad again, you know. And, that might have been a little bit ignorant, right? We can't really control what happens to us in our life,
No,
you
I
know.
understand though.
But, for me it was wanting to understand and wanting to
Right.
understand life, right? I mean, I had never really been faced with anything more than, the death of an uncle or a dog, right? Which, are hard
Yeah,
too. But when like you say,
of
when it's
course.
somebody who's like in your main circle of people all the time, it hits differently. Um, so yeah, I mean, and my mom's, still around, but it's like this thing of like, well, crap, what's going to happen the next time, right? Like, am I going to go down a
Right.
same
Yeah.
dark path? And, um, so I kind of went off on a search to understand more, understand, you know, who are we? Where do we go? Right. I was raised with religion, even though I'm not religious anymore, but, evaluating the
Yeah.
concepts of heaven and, you know, um, just what is our place in this world? And I'd say that's how I manage it today. And my beliefs are that I believe at this point in my life in reincarnation. I believe that
Mhm.
we are a soul that has a body, has this vehicle that we're here to travel with on this earth, and the purpose of our life is to improve our character and evolve our soul as much as possible from lifetime to lifetime. So I guess what that affords me and what that helps me understand in my life is that this life is just a small window of time, right? And everybody dies, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's getting out of here alive, as they say, right? We're all,
Right.
we're all going to go sometime. So what is our purpose while we're here? Why are we here? Which fuels, kind of how I act and how I behave every single day, and how my goals in my life. But then also, gives me comfort and understanding that nothing is permanent. Nothing and nobody is permanent, right? And you know, when I look at that, that's really powerful to help me live in the present moment, right? Appreciate everything and everybody that you have, um, because you literally never know if you'll wake up tomorrow or not.
Yeah. No, you're very, very right. Yeah, I know. I myself, it's one thing I realized because it's crazy. I mean, I'm pretty young. I mean, I'm only 19, but at this point, I already know three people that I literally just graduated with last year, and they're all gone.
Mm.
It's insane, and you know, it really has. I know for myself personally, it's like a moment of because I mean, this mental health is the one thing I've always struggled with since I was younger. Like even when I was 7, I was having like suicidal thoughts. I would never act on them, but it's just because my brain chemistry is messed up. But um, I forgot necessarily where I was going with that. I got just drew a
Mm.
blank.
Well, I'm sorry for
But
your loss.
I
That's
think
that's hard.
no, yeah, I appreciate it, man. Um, but yeah, it's sorry, I literally
No,
just lost my track
that's
of
okay.
thought.
That's okay.
But
Yeah, it's I've lost people too. I mean, especially during that kind of time of drug use, and I was watching people that was my same age kind of just die around me, right? And that was an eye opener as well. But um, yeah, it's one of those things where I try not to live in fear, right? I try not to
I agree.
um, think about those things so much, right? I mean, knowing we're all going to die, um, again, affords me gratitude, I would say, right? To appreciate everything that we do have while we're here, and to put
Yeah.
ourselves in the best position to live longer, right? I mean, if I'm, you know, I want to live, right? And that's different than it
Right.
was back then where, I didn't care what I was putting in my body
Yeah.
versus now I'm very particular about, making sure that I take care of my body the same way I would take care of my car, right? I mean, we change our oil,
Yeah.
you know, give it maintenance when it needs it, but then our bodies
Right.
will smoke cigarettes and eat crap all day and then, wonder why it breaks down.
That's so true. So, since you started to change, like what was that did for you? Because I know you really talked about willpower a lot, but since I'm assuming like after you were forcing yourself to just change, like what was it that you do? Like, did you read things? Did you watch videos? What'd you do?
Yeah, a lot of reading. Um,
Anybody in particular?
yes, Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth is a book that really was life changing for me. Trying to remember, I want to get the name right. Don Miguel Ruiz, which is, he wrote The Four Agreements. That book was probably one of the most profound for me kind of at that time of change.
Wow,
Really just about, being impeccable with your word, doing the best you can, you know, and just really, really powerful, simple lessons. Um, yeah, so kind of just became a seeker of information and knowledge. It led me down a path of, lots of different books. I remember um, sitting at my house and one of my cousins telling me, meditation is the real drug, man. And that to me was just like kind of eye opening, like, whoa,
yeah,
whoa, whoa, what
right,
do you mean? Like, it's like a drug? Like, oh, well, I've liked drugs in my life. Let's see what that's about.
yeah,
Right. um, So I tried it, and I just sought out like local community stuff. Like you can go on to Meetup. There's a little, I'm in Denver, Colorado. There's a Buddhist temple that I tried for a little while just to learn and see what it was about. I read books on
Yeah.
meditation. Um, there was a group that I joined for a while that was just a mindfulness meditation group. Um, and then ultimately that led me to my teacher that I still study under today, randomly, kind of finding his teachings and his meditations. And, um, that's really what keeps me sane and keeps me going throughout this is meditation, right? I mean, it's, um, awareness creates transformation. So,
Uh,
meditation to me creates awareness. It helps our minds to slow. It helps us to be more still, and it helps our brains to be more powerful.
wow. I mean, that's so interesting to me because it's actually, like in today's age, especially with the internet stuff like that and social media, you always hear people talking about, meditation, meditation, meditation. So could you explain a little bit like how it's changed you
Mm-hmm.
and like how did you get into it? I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
get that what was you say your uncle? What was
Cousin,
your
cousin.
cousin, right?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then he told me about meditation and I was like a drug, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like what did you do for the first time? Did you like sit down and close your eyes and start humming like home? Like what was it?
Well, I do a lot of that now, but no, it was,
Oh really?
yeah. I, I used and this came actually from a different cousin of mine, but, um, there's a group that's called Australian Meditation Society, and he just recommended it to me.
Oh nice.
And it's a podcast, so you can just, it's free, you can listen to it. And there's like, if you're out there and want to start it, like start with day one and just do 30 days. And I remember that it was really really powerful because it answered your question, right? It was like, well, here's like, every day, like, one day would be 5 minutes of meditation. But it was like, okay, for this meditation, just look at this candle, right? And the next day would be like maybe
Hmm.
6 minutes, and it'd be like, okay, this meditation, just close your eyes and pay attention to your breathing. Right. And then the next day, maybe it's getting a little bit bigger or longer, right? Like an 8 minute. And this one is like walking you through a visualization technique where, it's a beautiful technique. I can still picture it, where you're like standing on the edge of a
Oh,
cliff, and you fall off the cliff with the wind, but you fly, and then you dive into the ocean, and ultimately you sit on the bottom of the ocean. And, you can
oh,
visualize all the fish flying, swimming around you. And, it just starts to kind of
yeah.
train the mind a little bit to do different things. Um, it's a really good entry point for people that want to try it.
No, that's really interesting. I've never heard of that one before.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Australian Meditation
Also,
Society. Learn to Meditate, it's called.
that's interesting. So earlier you said that when you meditate, you said it helps you with awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you said that when you do it, because correct me if I'm wrong, but what I always thought is in meditation you're not supposed to think of anything. Is that true? Or is there because the way you explain it, is it sounds like there's different kinds, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's actually not true. And here's why.
Mm,
So you're never going to, make your mind shut off, right? Or not think, right? Like if I tell you to not
okay.
think, chances are you're going to start thinking about why I'm telling you to not think,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me.
But it's really just about putting some space between your consciousness and the thoughts. And I can explain a little bit more about that. But one
No,
way
I'd love to hear it.
one way that I like, how this has been discussed or presented to me, or that I've learned a metaphor, is that meditation is like sitting on the bank of a wild rushing river. Okay. So
Hmm,
the river, think about like class 5 rapids, right? Like just,
right.
violent rushing water, right? That's a metaphor for your thoughts. There's some crazy number out there. I think
No,
it's
that makes
like,
sense.
I think there's some, it's like the average human
No, I
being
know.
has
Yeah, I
like
know exactly what you're talking about.
60,000 unique thoughts in a day or something like that. Right. And, um, so that we're just essentially getting pounded with thoughts all day long. Right. So meditation is making the choice of, okay, well, I can either stand in the middle of that river and just get beat up by these thoughts, or I can sit on the bank of that river and observe those thoughts going by. So,
Wow. No, that makes perfect sense.
yeah, so it's not about stopping them. It's about observing them. My teacher talks about, we constantly will say things like, well, um, let me think of a good example here. Well, let's just say this. There's a difference between the thinker and the thoughts. Okay. So I am the thinker, right? I'm the person who thinks the thoughts, but then there's these thoughts, right? So it's like, oh, I'm overwhelmed. I've got all this stuff going on. I got to get to this, that, and the other. I'm late for work, this, that, and the other. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
are you that? Are you that stress? Are you that anxiety?
No.
Or are you the person who is actually doing the thinking? Right. And I would say if you're living in a place where you could use more awareness, you're just living in that, right? You're controlled by your thoughts. You're living in a lot of fear because, you're like, well, what happens if I'm late? This, that, and the other, and then it's like all of your actions are built off of whatever that latest thought is that you had, versus if you're taking a step back and you're watching your thoughts like a cloud passing in the sky, you can start to make some decisions
Yeah.
and say, hey, does that thought serve me? Am I really that late? Okay, well, what happens if I'm 5 minutes late? Is it going to be the end of the world? Or is somebody probably just going to say, hey, can you try to be on time next time? I apologize and I move on, right? Rather than my
Right.
whole day kind of going to crap over, one bad thought. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. So, just so I can get more of an
Mm-hmm.
understanding. So when someone is, facing something stressful, or they're in, I guess you'd say, like a negative state, what should they do to reset and get back to neutral?
Mm. Breathe. Yeah, it's all about breathing, and it sounds so cliche, but it's really I want to make sure I get this right, but the when you're in a stressful negative state like that, the nervous system of the body is in, I believe I sometimes get these mixed up, so apologies if I do, but I think it's a sympathetic state, right? Your nervous system is in a sympathetic state. And what that means is that your fight, flight, or freeze mechanisms are activated, right? Where you're fighting, you're freaking out essentially, right?
Right.
And historically, our bodies are, they're amazing machines. That this process was a life-saving process in the past, right? If we all at one point were living lives where we lived among lions and tigers and wars and battles, and you know if you're sitting there and a lion's coming at you, it's good for your body to feel stress because you need to get up and you need to run,
Right.
right? Or else
Yeah.
you're going to die, right? But we
Yeah.
don't live in that time anymore, right? We live in a time where the lion is now traffic, or the lion is work, or the lion is a
Yeah.
2-year old screaming at us, right? And it puts us into these stressful states. And by breathing, you effectively are tricking your body into calming itself down, right? Like your mind might be saying, oh my God, this is just too much. But if you breathe, your body is a machine, and the systems of your body will reflect the calmness that you're bringing in through breathing. So, we can't heal in a state of stress. We can't think in a state of stress. So when you find yourself in that place, just getting yourself back to a baseline will allow you to just make a better decision. And it's so simple. I mean, you can do, I teach my clients what's called 5-5-7 breathing. So it's inhaling for a count of 5, holding for a count of 5, and exhaling for a count of 7, and all through the nose. And if you do that for 10 times, that's 2 minutes of your life. It'll take 2 minutes and your body will calm down. And then you can say, okay, where do I want to go from here? Right. Versus just being caught in that whirlwind of thoughts and emotions and essentially losing all control.
Okay, I mean, I just as you were saying that, I actually just tried it
Mm-hmm.
at the one time. That's intense. I feel oxidized.
Yeah, I mean, it's breathing alone can change lives. It's so crazy, man. I mean, it's so many people don't actually even breathe into their bellies, right? I mean, it's this kind of either
Yeah,
through their mouth and like a short breath versus actually
right.
stretching out your whole stomach and your solar plexus through your breath. It's just such a calming effect.
You kind of touched on it earlier, but I was actually going to ask you. So, if someone were to work with you, like, what could they expect?
Yes.
Because let's just say, like I'm a person, you know, I mean, it's obvious. Like, I know I got to exercise, but I really don't know how to do it.
Hmm.
And then, like I'm struggling with the mental part, which is why I think I'm struggling to stay consistent in everything.
Hmm. 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 Yeah, so I mean, for me, like I mentioned, I'm an energy healer and a coach. And I practice what's called pranic healing. So a lot of people have probably heard of things like Reiki and acupuncture, and pranic healing is
What is that?
pranic healing. It's
Yeah,
it's a no touch energy healing system. And what that means is that, kind of tying a lot of things we've talked about already, but we're more than just our bodies, right? We are energy, right? I mean, if we die, all that's left is this skin suit, essentially, right?
yeah,
So by being alive, there's some kind of animating force within us that is called our life force. It's our energy. Um, you know it's vibe, right? I mean, how many we talk about it all
right.
the time, right? Like, I just don't get a good feel from this person, or this person's not my vibe,
Exactly.
or
Yeah.
my energy's really low, or man, I'm super high energy, right? Like, that is our energy. So um pranic healing is a way to clean that, because we pick up energy from our surroundings every single day and from our life, and it's like, if you've never had an energy healing, it's essentially like you've never taken a shower, right? Like, we go out in the world every
Really?
single day, and we accumulate dirt and stuff from just
Yeah.
living, right? Well, energetically it's the same, and especially if you grew up or are living around trauma or difficulty or stress or anxiety, these are energies that absorb into our energy bodies. So energy healing will help to remove those, and essentially refresh it with healthy energy. So working with me, that's one way. And I like to think of it as a non-medication way of kind of getting a reset, a level set, right? I mean, I mentioned before, I've
Yeah.
taken antidepressants in my life, and even though I didn't want to, I did it because my doctor said, "Hey, like, you're up here, right? And if you take these, it's going to bring you down here and give you some clarity on what you want to do." Right. And energy healing is
Yeah.
kind of the same thing. I mean, it's, if you're overwhelmed, if you're in stress, if you're anxiety, you're just essentially walking around in a fog, right? And by clearing some of that energy, it's going to help to give you a fresh outlook on the direction of your life. So when you work with me, like, that's one thing I offer, just to kind of help you to reset. And then I mentioned I'm also a coach. So, and coaching to me is about three things. It's about information, accountability, and support,
Yeah.
right? So you don't know how to
Well said.
exercise, I can teach you how to exercise, right? I'm not a fitness trainer, but I can help you, get your way around so that you can not be overwhelmed mentally about, hey, what do I do? Right? I give you a small program
Yeah.
to get you going. Um, you know, Support is, sometimes it's, being a cheerleader for you. Hey, you're doing great and let's keep this going. And sometimes it's a kick in the butt to say, hey, like, this isn't my dream, right? This, you came to me and said you wanted to change this in your life and you're not taking the steps. Like, why, right? Like holding, being that kick in the butt for you to kind of take action, which leads to accountability, which is probably the most powerful one, right? Because
No, yeah, you're definitely
I
right.
mean, as humans, we show up for our mom. We show up for our teachers. We show up for our boss. We show up for our spouse. We show up for our kids, right? I mean, that's what makes us a good person,
Yeah.
right? Do the people think we're being good, right? Are we doing,
Oh yeah, you're
are
right.
we doing our job? But then there's nothing left for ourselves, right? But when you have somebody who's holding you accountable to yourself, then you're more likely to show up. And I've seen this with clients, right? It's like, oh, I'll give you kind of
Yeah.
a homework assignment at the end of the week, so like just some action items to take. And it's like,
Yeah.
ordinarily they'd be like, I wouldn't have done this, but I didn't want to come back to my next coaching class and not have done this because it's homework you gave me, right? Like, little do I know,
Yeah.
do they know that it's not like I, I care that they do it or not, but it's not like I'm grading them, right? I'm just trying to help them
Right.
be the person they want to be. So,
No, yeah, I think you're 100% correct because I know I myself I know many times I would have not have done things if I didn't have the not like fear as in like oh my gosh I'm terrified, but the having to deal with the someone's disapproval,
hmm
and I think it's a good thing because it's served me well thus far. So
yeah, yeah, me too. I mean, for sure. A lot of my life I spent kind of living it, in fear of being, you know, of disapproval, if you will, from my parents or
yeah,
teachers or whatever, or, siblings, whatever it might be. And I think there's a key there, though. There's a trick there in that, like, when you start to dream and when you start to create life according to your dreams, you're not doing it for anybody's approval anymore, right? You're doing it for your sake. You're doing it out of because it's your
right,
passion, because you want to be happy. And that's, to me, that's alignment. Like, you're aligned with who you are, who you want to be. And you know Tony Robbins is famous for saying, you mentioned it earlier, but oh no, you were talking about a why. But Tony Robbins is famous for finding a pull, not a push, right? Where you know uh
yeah, I've heard of that.
disapproval, right? That's a push. Like, oh crap, like, what's, if I
Right,
don't do this, then I'm gonna get in trouble. So something's pushing me along,
yeah,
versus a pull is like, man, I'm gonna be a billionaire and I'm gonna have a yacht and I'm gonna do this for the world. And, I'm gonna have this for my family or whatever it might be, right? That's a pull. That's a dream that's gonna pull
yeah.
you. And that's gonna be so much more motivating than anybody up your ass, if you will. So,
No, you're definitely right. That's a lot more positive too.
mhm.
I know I myself. That's one thing I've always struggled with is the whole push mentality. Like so coming like from a place of like scarcity
Mhm.
instead of abundance.
Mhm.
So I totally get what you're saying. But yeah, I know you got to go soon, so I just got one more question for you, and then after that we can call it a day if you want. But uh, could you just explain a little bit more about the spiritual healing thing? Because
Mhm.
I was really wondering because I know I myself am intrigued. So exactly like what does that consist of? Is it just breathing? Because you said it's like never taking a shower. So I'm like, if that's true, my spirit must smell like crap.
Well, I'm sorry if I gave you that impression. I mean, it's that might have been an extreme, right? I mean,
No, I
compassionately,
mean it makes sense.
yeah. No, I mean, we do things in life, when you do cardio, for
Yeah,
example, your energy body gets cleaned, Okay. So there are things that you can do. It's not like you never take a shower, right? I mean, if you're doing service in the world, your energy body is getting cleaned. If you're helping people,
Mm.
if you're loving, it's being cleaned. But when you get into this
Okay.
place of, you know, drug use and depression and sadness and trauma and death and these things, like they can just pile on top of you, right? And um I know I felt it. I think a lot of people have felt it too, where it's like it literally becomes heavy, right? Like, I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's darkness, right? It's depression. I mean, it's just feels fateful, right? Like, there's no way out of this. Um, so yeah, I mean, so are you asking like how it's done or more about like what it entails?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was only wondering because I myself recently, like this past year, especially this past couple months, it seems I feel like almost as if I'm like kind of going crazy. I mean, I know I'm not because but it's just more of a I myself, I'm the kind of person that has never been satisfied with anything,
Mm,
and like I always want more, and it's pushed me to strive for more, which is I guess good in the eyes of society, but when it comes to me, it's not a good feeling of never feeling like you're enough
mm,
because it's just a constant endless loop of, oh, you think this is gonna make you happy, you get this thing and then it's something else, then you get this thing, it's something else.
mm-hmm,
So that's the only reason also I was asking.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, so you've probably heard of the concept of an aura. Have you heard of an aura?
Yeah, I've heard of
I
it.
mean, people would be like, "Oh, your aura's glowing," or "Oh, I can just
Right.
feel your aura when you walk into this room," right? And it's a good way to think about our energy body, which is just kind of outside of our body
Okay,
here. It's kind of that,
that
you
makes
can when
sense.
you see somebody walk into a room, you can tell pretty instantly are they like the life of the party? Are they sad? I mean, you can kind of pick up on just, by observing
Yeah.
people, by the energy they're putting off, right? You can tell if somebody's sick. You can tell if somebody, just, you know, is ecstatically happy, right? Um,
Right.
so, but beyond that, we have energy centers in our body. And these energy centers, you can think of them almost the equivalent of like our glands. So, we have a thyroid gland that has specific functions or responsibilities for the functions of our body. We have adrenal glands, right? They have a specific job in our body. I don't know all the glands, but we've got glands everywhere, right? That do different
Yeah, I
things that
know.
keep our
I
life.
get your point.
um, so, comparably, we have these energy centers as well that you can't see, right, with the visible eye, if you will, and they have certain functions. So um, when we have insecurity, self-doubt, anger, sadness, depression, um, these energy centers aren't functioning as well. Okay, they're and one way to think about this is this is our solar plex, which is right above our stomach, below our lungs, and this is the energy center where we store stress. So
Mm,
when you feel a lot of stress, you tend to cramp up, right? You tend to like get stomach aches,
yeah.
right? Like, oh, it just like
Yeah, I
like
know.
turns into a rock, right? I mean, that's kind of an indication
Yeah.
that you know overthinking and difficult emotions and sometimes illness are taking place here, and simply by removing some of these energies, and there's a method that I do use crystals, I use my hands, although it's no touch. So I do virtual, I can heal from across the world. Anybody can. And on that note, I'm not special. I'm not like somehow privileged to be able to do this. Anybody can learn how to do this. Um, that's the beauty of the teachings that I've been given. Um, but yeah, so we can remove some of these energies, and it will make these energy centers function as they should again, which is just going to allow you to um, get out from underneath some of those thoughts, right? I mean, if it is fear driving you forward, if it is, I'm not saying, oh my God, you have fear, right? Like we all have fear, right? Or insecurity
Yeah,
or doubt. But
of course.
if that starts building up over time, then that thing the energy center is just almost becoming inoperable, and it impacts you in all areas of your life. So the concept of this, to back up just a little bit, is that this life force is something that's constantly flowing through our bodies. And pranic healing is based off of two concepts. One is that the body can heal itself. Okay, so if you have a cut on your hand, right, the biology of the body is such that it knows how to heal itself, right?
Right.
If you catch a cold, right, the body knows how to heal itself. You don't have to, go and do surgery to fix your cold, right? The body can repair
Yeah.
itself, right? That's our life force at work. The second concept is that through the intentional application of energy, we can accelerate healing, right? We can help the body to heal itself better. So, what can happen is that when we go through difficult things, stop me if this is getting to be too much or too weird, but there's
No, it's not.
our thoughts. Think of it as our thoughts and our emotions essentially are like, the cartoons that have little like thought bubbles, right?
Yeah.
So thoughts and emotions they have form. You can't see them, but like if you think of something, it stays with you, right?
No, it
That's
does.
why there's, all of these great spiritual teachers have said, like, be careful what you concentrate on, because if there's any chance that it's going to come true, it will, right? Because we put this into our aura. We put these thoughts and emotions in our aura. And over time, when you do that enough, what starts to happen is they just start pounding, building on top of each other and on top of each other, on top of each other, and they become like this dense ball of energy. And that's where we could start to see disease and sickness happening. I believe that all sickness and all disease has an emotional origin, which,
it makes sense from a scientific standpoint too, because when people are happy, they're less likely to get sick. So I mean, it makes complete sense.
yeah, I mean, your immune system breaks down, right? If you're
Right.
under stress all the time. So by simply removing that, and that, the way that we're able to do that remotely is that, through it's called the principle of oneness, which is that, again, kind of going
Mm.
back to spirituality again, all things and all beings are connected in one. We are all connected, when it really comes down to it. If you put my hand, this coffee mug, and you under a microscope, you break it down to the smallest atoms that are mostly filled with space, right? So, from a scientific standpoint, we are all just atoms,
Yeah.
right? But we
Right.
have form, but essentially we're all connected under the surface. So energetically, you know, you're in, the Eastern United States, I'm in Colorado. I'm sure you can feel me, right? Like you can,
Yeah.
like you said earlier, like we've got good chemistry, right? Chemistry is another word for
Right.
for energy, for the vibe, right? Like you can understand when you connect with
Right.
somebody or not, and it's just kind of latching onto that same concept and applying techniques that my teacher has given us to clear that energy so that you can feel lighter. You should try it. It's great.
No, yeah, I'm definitely gonna. Like I said, I'll definitely be contacting you. But yeah, Jesse, it's almost 1 o'clock. I know you gotta hop on another call, but thank you so much for your time, man. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Aaron. I really
So
appreciate you. Thanks for even
this
setting
this
this
was
up.
great. Oh no, man, dude, I love you, dude. You're a great guy. But so where can the people find you at? You know, because people want to learn more about your methods. Because I know I already wrote this. What is it? What is it? The 5-5-7 breathing method.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Mm-hmm.
that it?
Yep. Yep.
I know I wrote that down on a piece of paper. I'm gonna save that one for later.
Yeah, do it. Just practice it 10 times, 2 minutes. That's all it'll take. And you can get to a point you can do it all day, every day, and it's just going to make you more and more calm, right? I mean, I think I teach my clients to relax, breathe into chaos, right? Especially when you're in a moment of chaos,
Mm.
that's when you want to apply that the most. So yeah, you can find me on my website, which is www.sturdyoakwellness.com. Same thing on Instagram, Sturdy Oak Wellness, or at Sturdy Oak Wellness. Or you can email me at Jesse at Sturdy Oak Wellness as well.
All right, thanks, man. Also, by the way, guys, if you that's the information you just gave is also gonna be in the show notes below. So if you are struggling to type it in, just go down and click the button, and then you'll get sent right to the page.
Cool.
But yeah, so yeah, thank you again, man. And I'll see you guys on sometime soon. I'm not gonna say the when at this point. So I will see you guys around, and have a great one. Peace.